Well, video games represent more than $7 billion to the Canadian economy. And aside from the money, the design and the graphics, they have real meaning to individual gamers. That includes Kawika Guillermo, the author of Floating Isles, a memoir about growing up with video games. He joins us this morning for more on this. Congratulations on the book. Fascinating topic because there are now maybe 2 generations of kids growing up with video games. A lot of them told to get off the video games and go do something that is productive. But video games themselves can be quite productive. Why write this memoir?
Well, I just hit a moment in my life where I was doing a lot of reflective work, and I was a game scholar. I had my first book on video games come out in 2020. And so I was just getting a lot of questions about like how games had impacted me throughout my life. And I was also finding that like teaching games in a university over 10 years, like students really wanted to hear those stories, and also like, you know, felt like they some kind of kinship in the way that games had formed their politics and their like commitments to creating a more just world. And I just realized at some point, you know, I haven't read a book like that. I really want to. So I ended up just being impatient and writing it myself.
Wow. So you are a video game scholar. Can you talk about how you get to that point and more about the learning that is involved with the students you're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, I got my PhD in literature, and then I realized at some point that I was just a lot more interested in studying video games, and that people took to it, and I had a lot to say about games. So I think that video games, like as I argue in the book, are this kind of poetry of the digital age in the way that they, you know, communicate more on an emotional level, on a sensory stimulation level, and they help us kind of disconnect from a lot of the ways that technology has, you know, dominated our lives, and we can be anonymous, ambiguous, and they're overwhelmingly complex. And so part of the mission of the book is to try and free the different meanings of games and all the narratives that we have of games, so we can, you know, take on all the different things that games do in our lives.
Yeah, that's fascinating stuff. And there's a bit of a stereotype about who plays video games. You're talking about racialized and marginalized people. Why is that such a key thing to talk about?
I think just because, you know, the stereotypes of gamers is like it's like this white male toxicity space. And I think a lot of, you know, media, no offense, but a lot of media, a lot of like advertisements, you know, for video games just try to cohere those narratives. Because game companies make, you know, or at least they used to make a lot of money when you had a game that was like dangerous and disobedient. And it's like, don't buy this game, you know, it might make you violent, but that would make people want to buy it more. Sure. So there was this kind of like collaboration between a lot of the powers that be to like have games look like this particular thing for like white men. But then there's always been queer people playing games, always been marginalized people is playing games, sometimes in the majority of game players. And so I just wanted to like write about them because they're not seen in game cultures.
And I want to get to this quickly too. You talk about how this can be important in grief, for example. Can you explain that?
Yeah, I mean, games like accompany us through a lot of the challenging times in our lives. And so, like, I've gone through a lot of grief and mourning at different points in my life. My first girlfriend passed away or was tragically killed in a car crash. My late wife passed away in 2022. Her name was Yi Dang Trung. She wrote the book Land Bridge, so it might be familiar to some people. Yeah, but I was able to access a lot of the memories and grief for those people through the games I was playing at the time, because I saw games as this space where we could talk about death, and you could communicate with people, like anonymous people online, and have, you know, these sessions with people who were going through similar things. And so when I think about those people, you know, it sounds a bit cringy and weird, but I do think of the games that I was playing and the impact that they had at those times to access some of those memories.
Sure. It makes a lot of sense. It is a fascinating conversation. It's a fascinating book. Congratulations on Of Floating Isles. It's now available on Amazon and at Chapters. For more on Kawika and his other award-winning novels, you can visit kawikaguillermo.com.